Hi, my name is Brandy McNair, and today I'm going to be conducting this interview regarding family life for my African American Studies class. So what is your name in relation to me?
My name is Jerry McNair, and I'm your father.
Okay, and when and where did your birth take place?
I was born in Oakland, California, February 11th, 1956.
Okay, and what was your favorite time with the family growing up and now?
My favorite time growing up was spending an extraordinary amount of time with my father. I was like his shadow. We did a lot of outdoor activities, fishing, hunting. He and I both had a passion for cars. Um, we hung out a lot together. So it was very enjoyable. Today, now, as a parent, what I enjoy most is kind of reflecting back on what I experienced with my father, spending a lot of time with my children and making sure that I can be the best father that I can.
Okay, and can you discuss your parents' family, your family growing up, and your family now?
Certainly. Let's start with my mother side of the family. My mother was born in the Houston, Texas area. She was born to Delilah Lofton and Jim Smith, and uh, she had two siblings, two brothers, and on my father's side, he was born in a little small place called Bogalusa, Louisiana, and his mother, Delilah, and uh, my father, Dan, his father, I'm sorry, Dan, were his parents. Um, and my parents, they met during the wartime, and my father was in the Navy, and my mother, she worked on warships actually, and they met, migrated to Southern California, where after they married, and that's where my family was. I'm sorry, Northern California. That's where my family were born, raised, pretty much.
Okay, then your family growing up?
My immediate family, I'm one of six siblings. I have four sisters and a brother, and my oldest is Pauletta, and then Hermit, my brother, um, Audrey, Shirley, Dolores, other sisters, and Sonia and myself.
Okay, and how is your family now?
My family now consists of five children, my beautiful children, including you, your sister Brittany, and then there's Brandon, Brian, and Bryce.
Okay.
Brian, right?
And are you married?
And I'm married to my wife of 23 years, Stephanie.
Okay. And then can you discuss the difference between parenting styles between your parents and how you are?
Certainly. When I grew up, my father was more of a product of command and control. He was highly disciplined, very structured, and wasn't very collaborative. We didn't, with me, he was pretty interactive, but with most of my other siblings, it was more of a command and control style. My style is radically different in that I am certainly more um, engaging with my children. I try to uh, converse, understand, collaborate, motivate, and talk through things as opposed to having a predisposition about different issues.
Okay. And can you discuss Northern California, Southern California, and Texas, why you lived in each and the role race and ethnicity has played in each?
Certainly. When I grew up, I lived in a very integrated city, Berkeley, and I really didn't experience any integration or segregation issues as a child in the area that I grew up in because the integrated nature of the environment. San Francisco, Berkeley was just that way. First time I really experienced uh, issues along the lines of race when I came down as a child to visit Southern California, and I saw people living in segmented areas, and it was quite unnerving because I had never experienced that before. I also visited Texas, I recall, as a child, and one of the things that that stood out the most, I was just hanging around with a cousin of mine, and we were walking, and we were about to head toward a neighborhood, and he said, well, we can't go there. And I'm saying, well, why not? So, well, we're not allowed there. That was truly disturbing because it was just overt racism where, you know, we weren't allowed to go in certain places because of our race. That to me was a kind of a turning point. It was a kind of a dose of reality of what the real world was like.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how has race and ethnicity factored into where you are today and how you got there?
Well, after experiencing, you know, racism at an early age, I was determined that I wasn't going to be a product of it. You know, I felt that I could create my own manifest destiny as opposed to someone predetermining what that would be. I work extraordinarily hard at achieving success. I try to excel at whatever endeavor that I participate in, and I allowed that driving force to get me to where I am. You know, as an executive, business owner, I just would never stop. I would never let someone to define success for me. And I try to pass that on to my children to make sure that they understand that success is whatever they want success to be, and no one determines that but themselves.
Can you list a specific hardship that you've experienced in regards to race and ethnicity while growing up, or where you are today?
I once had, I recall, I was trying to graduate early, and my mom being a teacher, you know, she and we sat down and we crafted out a plan, and I remember presenting this to my counselor in high school. I had a very aggressive plan because I didn't want to graduate early, and he told me that that I was taking on more than what I could handle. My grades were A's and B's, and he's telling me that I couldn't do it based on no statistical empirical evidence that would suggest it otherwise. And I pushed back hardly after I told my mother what was being presented to me, and she wasn't pleased, to say the least. So needless to say, I was able to get the classes that I wanted. I achieved the goal that I wanted to achieve in terms of graduating early, but it wasn't that I wasn't put into a position where I was told that I was going to fail before I even had an opportunity to try.
Okay. And who are some prominent individuals in your family, and what are they famous for?
Well, we have a number of prominent individuals, both but professionally, sports, and music. Professionally, you have an astronaut, Ronald McNair. He was on the Spaceship Challenger. He died in '86 when the space shuttle blew up. Barbara McNair, she was also a singer, very famous in the 50s and 60s. My uncles, Judge, my grandfather was just one of the first black surgeons in the U.S. On the sports side, we have a number of high-profile players. James Lofton, football player, All-Pro, Hall of Famer. My cousin on my mother's side, Jerry McNair, played in the NFL. And then musically, we have a number of recording artists who span from all genres of music, from opera to R&B to jazz, including your siblings, which each play a number of different instruments, and your brother right now he's studying opera as well.
Okay. And who was the first family member to come to America, and how?
The first family member to come to America was John McNair. He came in 1770. He came by boat from Scotland, went into North Carolina, and the family kind of proliferated from there, both North Carolina, South Carolina, up the eastern seaboard, and actually down south, where we have a very large quantity of the McNair families in those respective areas.
Okay. And can you elaborate on the origin of our last name?
As I pointed out, our name originated in Scotland. In that time, before there was a printing press, the name were often pronounced differently depending on which region of Scotland you came in. There were different dialects. It was Macineer, but in the late 1700s, when you saw it written, it was McNair, McNair. And as you will see in shipping manifests, when you see travelers coming to the United States or in 1800s, 1700s, most of them, well, all of them, will have the name McNair that they were using as their surname.
Okay. And can you discuss the role African Americans play in society today, both positive and negative?
That they play in our economy.
Yeah, in society in general.
In society, we are an integral component of today's society, both in terms of contribution into science, to inventions, to politics. You name it. You have black involvement and engagement at all levels. I mean, some of the common inventions that people don't think of, things like the stoplight. You look at blood infusions. I mean, just things that we've contributed that are playing a vital part in America today. Things like Washington Monument, or even the whole architecture of Washington, D.C. was pretty much developed by an African American. Most people don't even recognize that. And again, we have our first black president. You have to acknowledge that as being quite an achievement. It was once thought by many that would never, ever happen. So that's pretty significant.
Okay. And what does family mean to you?
To me, family is a bond that is shaped around a common philosophical value that is, centered around trust, unconditional love, and respect for each other.
And is there anything you wanted to discuss regarding family in general?
I think that the by and large, the family, traditional family structure is being challenged in that, today's society require that, parents work, and they have to spend an inordinate amount of time away from their family, so they don't have the opportunity to really participate in their children's day-to-day upbringing. And I think that's a significant loss to the creation of family values and substance that gives the family its foundation. I think for us, we've been very fortunate. And your mother in general, she's had the ability to play a very active role in your upbringing and your siblings' upbringing. And she's been from your school life. I mean, she's there so much you think that she worked at the school, But I think that has made a significant difference in our family's ability to get a firm footing around sociological values, around the meaning of what family is, to be able to advance scholastically, academically, and have goals and know that you have the ability to set your own limits as opposed to having someone to set them for you. And I think that has given us as a family unit a real firm footing.
Mm-hmm. And do you see a difference in African Americans' family life and in general growing up instead of now, or in comparison to now?
Um, some degrees, yes. Some degree, no. I again was extraordinarily fortunate in that uh, I come from family who uh, take great pride in the fact that we have a very structured family life. Our family is very, very supportive, and that family life has been integral to keeping our family as broad-based as we are. Um, our family, we're landowners. I mean, we own land all over the country, in some of the remote places, the Alaska to Hawaii to you name it, and I think, you know, giving us the ability to travel, to integrate, with other members of our family, to learn about the different cultural attributes that each of us experience, and keeping that tight bond together has been just great. I think, but the more direct to your question, is there a delta between the family concept now and then? I think that family values meant something different than they mean now. Where today, what I seem to believe that things are more centered around speed, technology. They're very impersonal. You don't have time to spend that dedicated time with family. It's like, do it fast. Let's text each other. Let's call each other when you get a chance. And that wasn't the way that I grew up. It was very personal. It was very interactive. It meant that you spent time with someone. One of the greatest things that I had an opportunity to do, our family comes from a long life of long livers. My great grandmother was 112 years old. And when I would go down to visit my uncle and uncle, she stayed in a house on the property by herself. And this lady, her mind was as crisp as a bell. And the rest of the family would stay in the house with my aunt and uncle. I would always stay with my great grandmother. And I would sit with her hours on end listening to stories about change of the century, about things that have happened in the past, and trying to learn from her experience. That's just something you can't grasp from a book. Someone who's actually lived through, indifference and prejudice and progression, and seeing how the world has changed, and then having the clarity of mind to be able to articulate it clearly so that you can understand it and really get the concept of what actually happened and how she felt about it. That to me it was not only instrumental in my upbringing, but it gave me the sense of knowing, and having that knowledge that that you can pass on to your children. Things that are real, that actually happened, and as opposed to reading it from a book that's one dimensional. So I think not having that in your family structure where you can take things in advance and then pass that down as a living story is probably what's missing. With the little burst of information, you don't get that. Having that interaction with historians within your family tree is just something that's absolutely, a wonderful, wonderful thing to have.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me today.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm glad that I can provide some insight, and hopefully there's something of value you can take away from this.